During the era when Rome held power over the world and believers in Jesus were hunted and scattered, there lived an elderly man, cast out because he stood firm in his faith. This man was John, the disciple deeply loved by Jesus, the same one who once rested near him during supper. Sent away to the desolate island of Patmos, isolated and in chains, he was chosen by God for something extraordinary. Heaven itself was opened to him, and John saw things no other human had witnessed, visions filled with divine wonder, and a throne glowing with green light at its center. Mighty angels blazed like fire, crying without pause, "Holy, holy, holy!" The Lamb, once killed but now alive, stood receiving all honor and strength. He saw a great gathering of people in white robes, those saved from every corner of the world, every culture and language. A new Jerusalem appeared, coming down as beautifully prepared as a bride for her groom. These visions were too magnificent for earth, too incredible for words, yet John recorded them in what became the Book of Revelation. Let us now explore the path he was shown. On the Lord's Day, while I was deep in spiritual prayer, a voice rang out behind me, loud and sharp like a trumpet. It said, "I am the beginning and the end, the first and the last. Write down everything you see and send it to the churches." I turned to find the source of the voice, and the gateway of heaven opened. It wasn't like ordinary doors made by human hands. It shone with timeless brilliance, a glowing entrance from another world. A light unlike anything on earth flowed through, alive and majestic, filled with pure holiness. And I heard that same voice again, the one that spoke when I first turned and saw the Son of Man among the golden lamps. It was as powerful as a trumpet, clear, firm, and full of authority. The voice called to me, "Come up here, and I'll show you what will happen next." Suddenly, my exile seemed to vanish. Though my body stayed behind, my spirit was drawn into the realm above. I was lifted far beyond time and space, past sky and sea, into the eternal courts. There, a throne stood in the heavens, and someone was seated upon it. John's journey didn't begin with symbols or terrifying creatures or divine punishment. It started with a doorway, an invitation. It was Christ himself who welcomed John, just as he once welcomed Enoch, who was taken to witness heavenly secrets, and Isaiah, who saw the Lord in glory. That door was no illusion. It revealed eternity itself, peeling back the curtain on all creation. John walked through, and the first thing he saw wasn't angels, saints, or even the shining city. It was the throne of God. From that open gate, John entered a vision led by the Spirit. He was no longer limited by his exile, no longer confined to Patmos or even the world. Before him appeared the heart of the vision, God's throne, and the one who reigned upon it. But how could he describe such a sight? The figure shone like jasper, pure and clear, and like carnelian, glowing with deep red fire. His brilliance outshined any gem, wrapped in a light that no one could approach. A glowing rainbow, bright as emerald, stretched in a full circle around the throne, alive with green light. It was a sign of God's promise of mercy, that even in power and judgment, he shows kindness. Surrounding the throne were 24 smaller thrones, each occupied by an elder. They wore robes as white as fresh snow, gleaming with the purity of those saved. Gold crowns rested on their heads, shining as rewards for those who had remained faithful. From the main throne came bolts of lightning, loud crashes and deep rumbles, like when God appeared at Mount Sinai and the mountains trembled. In front of the throne blazed 7 lamps of fire. These lamps are the 7 spirits of God, representing his perfect and complete presence, watching all and missing nothing. Before the throne stretched what looked like a sea made of glass, still and perfectly clear, reflecting the splendor above. It felt like all creation stood silently before its king. John's vision echoed what earlier prophets had seen. Ezekiel spoke of a throne that gleamed like sapphire, surrounded by brightness and flame. That's found in Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 26 to 28. Daniel saw the Eternal seated, surrounded by flaming wheels and a stream of fire pouring out. This appears in Daniel chapter 7, verses 9 to 10. This throne isn't just heaven's center, it is the core of all that exists. The flashes, the thunder, the fire, and the glassy sea all reveal the complete holiness of God. Around him, the 24 elders stand for all of the saved, 12 from the tribes of Israel and 12 apostles of Christ. Both Old and New Covenants come together in worship before the everlasting King. As John's vision grew clearer, his gaze was drawn closer. Beyond the throne and the elders, he saw beings that were different from anything earthly. These were not humans, not elders, not creatures of the world. They were living beings, keepers of the throne and the very voice of creation. Nearest to the throne, 4 unique beings stood guard. They didn't look like anything John had ever seen. Covered in eyes all over, inside and out, they could see in every direction. Nothing in the universe could escape their sight. The first looked like a lion, bold and royal, ruler among wild animals. The second looked like an ox, powerful and steady, a picture of hard work and giving. The third had the face of a human, showing intelligence and understanding. The fourth was like an eagle in mid-flight, swift and mighty, soaring in the skies. Each had 6 wings, and even their wings were full of eyes. They could see in every direction, focused on the shining presence on the throne. Without stopping, day and night, they shouted, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, who always was, who is now, and who is still to come." Their voices echoed through heaven, constant and powerful, because in the presence of the Eternal, there is no pause, no quiet, only the endless song of holiness. John's vision recalls the fiery beings in Isaiah chapter 6, the ones who covered their faces and feet as they cried, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of all. The earth is filled with his glory." It also resembles the winged creatures in Ezekiel chapters 1 and 10, full of eyes, each with a face like a lion, an ox, a human, and an eagle. These beings reflect the whole of God's creation, wild animals, farm creatures, humanity, and birds, together lifting their praise to their Maker. Their endless worship reveals God's eternal nature. He is the one who always was, who is now, and who will always be. He doesn't change like people do, and his rule has no end, unlike earthly rulers. These living beings show us that praise is not just a song sung by angels. It's the voice of all created things, never stopping, never fading, always holy. As the creatures sang their endless praises, all of heaven echoed with their worship. Around the throne, the sound of glory rose, the elders bowing low, the creatures declaring God's holiness without pause. Then John's attention turned back to the throne, to the right hand of the one seated there. In his hand was something more, a scroll, tightly sealed, holding the secrets of God's plan. I looked, and in the right hand of the one on the throne was a scroll. It had writing on both sides and was filled with God's truth, his judgments, and what must take place. But it was sealed with 7 seals, whole and secure. Then a powerful angel stepped forward and shouted with a voice like thunder, "Who is worthy to open the scroll and break its seals?" His question rang through heaven and earth. Everything grew silent. No one in the heavens, no one on the earth, and no one below was worthy, not even to look at it, and I began to cry deeply. Sorrow filled me, because if no one could open it, God's will would stay hidden and his rescue unfinished. But one of the elders, dressed in white and wearing a golden crown, came near and said, "Do not cry. Look!" The Lion from Judah's tribe, the descendant of David, has won the victory. He can open the scroll and its 7 seals. I looked up, ready to see a lion, strong, noble, full of power. But in the center of the throne, among the elders and living beings, I saw a lamb. It looked as though it had been killed, marked by sacrifice, but it was alive. Its wounds glowed with majesty. The lamb had 7 horns and 7 eyes, perfect strength and perfect sight, the same as the 7 spirits of God sent across the earth. Then the lamb stepped forward and took the scroll from the right hand of the one on the throne. John had been expecting a lion, but what he saw was a lamb. Heaven's great mystery was now revealed. True victory didn't come through strength or force, but through surrender. The powerful Lion of Judah, the long-awaited king from David's line, is also the Lamb who was slain. What looked like a loss at the cross became the greatest victory in all history. Inside the scroll lay the fate of the world, God's judgments, and the unfolding of his rescue plan. And only Jesus, the Lamb who gave his life, was worthy to break the seals. Heaven declared that true power doesn't lie in weapons or kingdoms, but in the cross and its sacrifice. When the Lamb stepped forward and took the scroll, heaven seemed to fall still, as all awaited the one who had earned the right. The Lion had won by becoming the Lamb. In that silence, a new sound filled the heavens, worship rising in a fresh song. As the Lamb received the scroll from the one on the throne, a deep stillness covered heaven. Every eye turned to him, the crucified, risen, and exalted Savior. Then the silence broke into praise. The 4 mysterious creatures, covered in wings and eyes, bowed down before the Lamb. The 24 elders, dressed in white robes and golden crowns, also knelt before him. Each held a harp, strumming heavenly music, and golden bowls filled with incense, sweet smoke rising in worship. That incense was the prayers of believers, poured out across generations of faith and pain. And then they began singing a new song, one that had never been heard before, neither in heaven nor on earth. You are worthy to take the scroll and open its seals, because you were killed, and with your blood you bought people for God from every tribe, language, people, and nation. You made them a kingdom, priests to serve our God, and they will rule over the earth. Their song flowed like a mighty river, echoing through the glassy sea, filling the heavens with sound. And then I heard the voices of countless angels, millions upon millions, gathered around the throne, the creatures and the elders. Their voices roared like waterfalls, like thunder shaking the skies. They shouted in perfect harmony, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain to receive power, wealth, wisdom, strength, honor, glory, and praise." Then I looked again, and every being in heaven, on earth, under the earth, and in the sea, all living things, joined the song, "To the one seated on the throne, and to the Lamb, be blessing, honor, glory, and strength forever and ever." The 4 creatures said, "Amen," and the elders fell down and worshipped. John had heard the greatest music heaven could offer, the song of salvation. The prayers of God's people rose like sweet smoke, joined by the angels' music and the voices of every living creature. The Lamb was worthy because he gave his blood to rescue people from every part of the world. His death was not the end. It was the victory that created a kingdom of priests who will reign with him. In that sacred moment, the entire universe became a choir, the throne room a stage, and at the center of it all stood Christ, the Lamb who had been slain. The angels' praise rolled like thunder, filling heaven with divine glory. John's vision continued to unfold. As the voices of worship rose higher, his gaze moved past the throne and the angels, revealing a new image. What he witnessed was not just heavenly beings, but a vast crowd of those who had been saved, dressed in white, standing before the Lamb. After this, I looked up again and saw a massive crowd in front of me, so large that no one could count them, more than all the stars or grains of sand. They had come from every country, every group, every culture, and every language under the sky, from kings to slaves, wealthy to poor, young to old. They all stood together as one before the throne and the Lamb. They wore bright white garments, made clean through the Lamb's sacrifice. In their hands they held palm leaves, showing peace, victory, and the end of struggle. And with one powerful voice, like crashing waves, they shouted, "Rescue and salvation come from our God on the throne and from the Lamb." Their voices filled all of heaven, rolling like thunder over the crystal sea. The angels around the throne, along with the elders and living creatures, fell on their faces and honored God, saying, "Yes, praise and glory and wisdom and thanks and honor and strength and power belong to our God forever and always. Yes." Then one of the elders turned to me and said, "Do you know who these people in white are and where they've come from?" I answered, "Sir, you know." He replied, "These are the ones who survived great suffering. They've cleaned their robes and made them white with the Lamb's blood. This is why they now stand before God's throne, serving Him all day and night in His sanctuary. The one on the throne will keep them safe in His care. They'll never go hungry again or be thirsty. They won't be burned by the sun or any heat, because the Lamb at the center of the throne will care for them like a shepherd. He'll lead them to fresh springs that never run dry, and God will gently wipe every tear from their eyes." John saw the full result of salvation, a great crowd not limited to one group or country, but drawn from every land. This was the promise to Abraham in Genesis 22:17-18, now fulfilled. "Your children will be as countless as the stars in the sky and the sand by the sea, and through your offspring all nations will receive blessing." The white robes stand for a holiness that doesn't come from effort, but from Christ's sacrifice. The palm branches remind us of Israel's past victories, now given to the saved from every nation. Before the Lamb, there is no more hunger, no more thirst, no more pain or grief. The shepherd who once gave his life now guides his people to endless life, and the God who brings peace removes every tear. This is the promise of heaven. Pain will not have the final say. The Lamb who was sacrificed will care for His people forever. John saw the crowd dressed in white, people saved from every land, praising the Lamb and forever safe in His presence. But that wasn't the end of the vision. After seeing God's people gathered, John was shown something even more incredible, the future of all creation. The old world, full of grief and loss, would fade away. In its place, God would create a new heaven and a new earth. I looked, and there it was, a brand new heaven and a brand new earth, for the first ones had disappeared. The former world, marked by sin and suffering, was gone for good. The sea, a symbol of disorder and division, was no longer there. Then I saw the sacred city, the New Jerusalem, coming down from heaven, sent by God. It was glowing, flawless, beautiful like a bride dressed for her groom. The city's walls sparkled like jasper, and its streets were as clear as gold. Its gates were made of giant pearls, and the foundations were decorated with rare jewels. The entire city shone with God's glory, bright like a priceless stone. There was no temple in this place, because the Lord Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city didn't need the sun or the moon to light it, because God's glory lit it up, and the Lamb was the light. All nations would walk in this light, and rulers would bring their honor into it. I heard a loud voice coming from the throne, echoing like crashing waves, declaring, "Look, now God lives with people. He will live among them. They will be His, and He will be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, no sadness, No crying, no pain, because those things are gone. The one seated on the throne said, "Look, I'm making everything new. Write this down, because these words are trustworthy and certain." Then he told me, "It is complete. I am the first and the last, the start and the finish. Anyone who thirsts, I will freely give water from the spring that gives life. Whoever stays faithful will receive all of this, and I will be their God, and they will be my child." John's vision ends not with ruin, but with hope restored. The broken world, damaged by sin and grief, is replaced by a renewed heaven and earth. This is the promise that God made through the prophets. "Look, I am creating new heavens and a new earth, and the past will not be remembered." Isaiah chapter 65, verse 17. The New Jerusalem isn't made by people. It comes from God, glowing in beauty, a place where heaven and earth finally join together. There is no need for a temple because God's presence fills everything. No sunlight is required because the Lamb shines forever. In this place, every hurt is healed, every tear is gone, and death, the last enemy, is defeated. What Adam lost in the garden, Christ brings back in glory. This is the great hope of believers, not just to leave this world behind, but to inherit a world made new, where God himself lives with his people forever. John's vision reached its highest point, a renewed heaven, a restored earth, and a shining city sent down in majesty. God would be with his people, and every tear, every grief, every sign of death would be gone for good. But even after revealing the future of all creation, the vision didn't end in silence. The voice of the Almighty spoke again, confirming his promise with his own words. Then the one seated on the throne spoke to me, and his voice sounded like rushing waters. He said, "Look, I am making everything new. Write it down, because what I say is trustworthy and true. I am the first and the last, the start and the finish. To anyone who is thirsty, I will give the water of life as a gift. Whoever stands firm until the end, I will be their God, and they will be my child." When I heard this, I fell down in worship, overwhelmed by his power, but also filled with peace from his words. Then I heard the Spirit say, "Along with the bride, come." And everyone who heard it repeated the call, "Come." That invitation reached every nation, calling out to each heart that longs to live. If you are thirsty, come and take the water of life, free of charge. This is heaven's last invitation, not just for me, John, the one who saw this vision, but for everyone who hears it, from now until the end of time. The gates of the city remain open. That call is meant for you. John's final vision doesn't end in confusion, it ends in welcome. It isn't just a look into heaven, it's a personal invitation for you and me. The Spirit and the bride cry out, "Come." The saved repeat the same word, "Come." And Jesus himself offers living water to all who will accept. The book of Revelation finishes where it began, with Jesus at the center, the beginning and the end, the Lamb who was slain, the King who will return. This isn't some far-off story, it's a promise that lives today. What John witnessed in heaven will take your breath away, the throne full of light, the Lamb who died but still stands, the songs of the angels, the sea of white robes, and the New Jerusalem, the city where God lives with his people. One day, this won't just be John's dream, it will be our reality. If this vision moved your heart, click like on this video, subscribe to explore more deep truths from the Bible, and share it so others can also hear heaven's invitation. And tell us in the comments which part of John's vision touched you the most. Until next time, keep your focus on Jesus, the Lamb who gave everything, and look forward to the day when faith becomes sight.